Hey guys, it's me Adit back on A Science Tree, and today I'll be showing you guys how to draw in perspective. So in the last episode I showed you guys some basic shapes. Now that was just a refresher for all of you, but today's video is far more important because we'll be discussing how to make the shapes we learned in the previous episode in 3D, more in perspective, so just like a normal person's view. So perspective is basically the warping of shapes that you see looking through your actual eyes. So imagine a two-dimensional world. So here's the length and then there's the breadth, right? So if I were to make a house, it'll look something like this. Now that'd be pretty lame to draw in like real life situations. You want to impress people, right? So you want to turn this into a 3D house. So in school you might have learned to make something like this, right? So the thing is the same thing but in perspective. Now why did we draw it like this? So there's a massive big reason to draw like this. So this is called two-point perspective. Now I'm going to teach you how to draw two-point perspective completely accurately, and it's basically how to draw houses like these with far more intricate and far more detailed. So in order to make a two-point perspective, what you're going to need is a horizon line. Now professionals don't really draw, actually professionals do draw horizon lines, they just don't draw the vanishing points. Now once you have a horizon line ready, just make two dots on two ends. The farther they are, the better, I'd recommend. And so if I were to make a cube like this, or a cuboid like this in space, then what I would want to do is, actually I should probably teach you guys 1 point perspective first, but let it be. Let's go with 2 point. I know you guys can do it. So once you have these two dots down there, what you want to draw is like a straight line like this. Now once you have this line, you've got these 2 points of the line. Now imagine that line being this line, right, of the house. Now connect these 2 points to the this one side of the dot. Just imagine them. It doesn't necessarily have to be drawn, right? Something like that. And then like the house is pretty long, so I'm gonna cut it off right there, and it's pretty short on this end, so I'm gonna cut it off right there. Now if I were to join these two pieces, these two dots, there you go, you've got 2-point perspective, a box in 2-point perspective. Now in order to make this roof like thing, you will need to find the center line of one side of the cube, which is right there. Make another imaginary line and then connect these two dots right there. Pretty cool. Now extend these down a little bit. Now you've got this dot which you might want to connect with this vanishing point and this one as well, and then join them together, and so that would be the roof. There'd be a window, let's consider a door. Alright, this is a basic house using 2-point perspective. Now you can do a lot of cool things using 2-point perspective. For example, let me draw a larger vanishing point. Now let's draw a line completely above the horizon line. So it'll be quite fun if you guys like to experiment with these things. So in this experiment number 2, we'll be drawing the straight line above the horizon line. Now this is the same thing, connect these two dots on the either side of the vanishing point. I'm just going to imagine it as something like that. Now let's just extend it a little bit. Now let's say this is a cube, right? So for a cube I think this would be good. Now once you have these parts done, this bottom part attaches to this vanishing point and this guy attaches to that vanishing point. So something like that, something like that. It intersects right there. Join them. There you go. You've got a cube in 2-point perspective. Now imagine a light hitting from this plane. So this plane lights up. This will be a little bit dark. This will be pretty dark. There you go. And there will be a shadow down here. Something like that, right? Now that's one experiment where we drew a cube above the horizon line, so it will look like things are floating from a man's perspective, right? It's looking up there, he sees a cube floating. And another cool thing about the horizon line is that you can use it for your compositions and proportions. So this man has his, like, the center of gravity right in the horizon line, Now if I were to draw a man closer to me, so let's imagine this is his head, and then he's looking at that thing as well, right? And then so here's the center of gravity again, looking at that building, right? And then if I were to draw another man on this side closer to that, then I'd have another center of gravity right on the horizon line, and then there would be his legs, and then he'd be looking down, looking up. It'd still be looking up because that thing's too far up on the back. So this is how you can use a perspective. So this guy is closer, this guy is farther. They all have their center lines on the horizon line, so that's a very cool feature. So imagine a stick man. So these guys were completely accurate. Now let's do one more experiment. Let's draw a cube on the bottom side. So let's say we've got a cube right in front of this man, or behind that man actually. So the same thing again, you draw a straight line. Let's say this is one point, we converge it, and on this side as well, right? And you can experiment by putting these vanishing points closer as well and see how the result turns out. It's a quite fun exercise. So let's say it's like a cube like this. Now attach these points. Now the same thing like we did with this guy, the top part of this side attaches to that vanishing point, so it's always the opposite vanishing points. So it intersects right there almost, and since the light source is coming from like right there, so it's like it's between that and that. So this plane that we don't see right back there is lit up. That means the other plane right behind it will be completely dark. Alright, so that's going to be the darkest plane in the entire piece. So that's the darkest value, and we've got a sort of not so dark value because this is in the ground, and then a mediocre dark value. So once you have this 2-point perspective thing down, you've got everything ready. Because let's see how 1-point perspective looks. Now this is going to be far easier for y'all because you already have the 2-point perspective under the book. Now let's say there's just one horizon line and there's one vanishing point. So imagine like billions of like straight imaginary lines passing through there. I'm just going to draw a few. Right? So let's draw another cube in this vanishing point. So let's say, since for 2-point perspective we took a straight line, for 1-point perspective it's going to be much easier. We'll take a shape like this. Let's take one shape and the other shape right there. Now we've got two shapes in space. Now all you have to do is follow one of these virtual lines and then cut it off like that. Now what you want to do is follow these circle right there, like that, and then follow the lines and then make another circle back there. So if you look at this without the guidelines, it will look something like this, and that's a cylinder in 2-point perspective. Now if I were to make this square a bit bigger, then my cylinder could have easily looked like a big pipe coming towards me, something like that, which is shaded on the inside like this, right? So that's how you do these perspective things. Now I should have probably made separate videos for the separate perspective, but I'm keeping it quite quick and I'm not going too much in depth because I don't want to confuse anyone. And the same thing goes for this horizon line as well as the whole thing. But, now let's move on to the 3-point perspective. So get yourself a bit more relaxed with this one because you don't want to tense up the 3-point perspective. By far the most hardest one is probably going to be the 6-point perspective. It's also called the bird's eye view, or the panorama effect. Is that weird circular globe thing effect. So you've probably used this filter on your phone, so like buildings look like this, right? from the top, like a bird's eye view thing. So imagine that's the earth and that's the buildings. So this is probably around 6-point perspective where you learn to do this, but I'm not going to be teaching that, at least, because that confuses me a lot and I can't draw that. So let's move on to 4-point perspective, just to clear it out of the way. So for 4-point perspective, we're going to do these 2 points and 2 points on the front, top and the bottom. And let's say we will be drawing a cuboid on the 4-point perspective. Then we'll be joining these lines like this, and then we'll be creating a line like that. This, the lighter one, is the virtual, and this is the real line, right? Now we attach this one side right there, one side right there, one side right there, and then we take this line again, make another virtual line, follow that, and make another virtual line and follow that, and then join these 2 parts together. So that's how you use 4-point perspective. Now nobody uses this thing while drawing in real life, so I'm just getting it out of the way so I don't have to teach it right now. So let's imagine a straight line, right? So, and then we've got a building like this. So it's like a juice box effect, right? Looks like a juice box. Well, you don't really need this. So if I were to make buildings, it looks something like this, something like that. Obviously I'm not going to draw it properly. Let's say, yeah, that's the 4-point perspective. Now the most important one is going to be the 3-point perspective. Let's draw it on a brand new page, because that's the most important thing you'll ever learn on this video. So if you've been watching throughout, congratulations, now you've officially reached a pretty high level in drawing perspectives, because the 3-point perspective is going to be the same thing. It won't be that confusing if you've practiced the 2-point perspective enough. So the same thing every time, a horizon line, 2 vanishing points, and that would make it the 2-point perspective. Now in 2-point perspective, if you remember, I drew a line and then converged it on the other perspective, vanishing points. So a line, straight line right there, a straight line right there. It was always a straight line, but in case of the 3-point perspective, we will be drawing a 3rd vanishing point, either on the bottom or at the top, it depends. So let's say I'll divide the page into 2 parts. On the bottom half, I'll be putting the vanishing point at the top, so there's the horizon line, and on the top half, I'll be using this same vanishing point but for this horizon line. So let's draw this one first. Now this will look sort of like as if you're looking from the top at something at the bottom. So okay, let's start with this vanishing point. Now what you want to do is, I'd recommend you guys use a scale or a ruler for this part, but since it's going to be a rough sketch for me, I'll be using my mechanical pencil and nothing more. So what you want to do is, let's start with the simplest one. Let's make a virtual line right there which follows all the way to this vanishing point. Now we'll draw a darker line indicating the real line, and then what you want to do is make more virtual lines like this, and then you've got this point which will converge right there, just like 2-point perspective. And then you'll take this vanishing point again and make another virtual line on either side, and then join those together, just like that. You got a building from 3-point perspective. So if you were to make many windows there, you'd be using something like this. So I'm just winging it. You don't, I'm not using any grids or calculations. I'm just doing it for the lols. So there is a bunch of windows you can use to detail your thing. And what I meant by it will look like a and shade like one side, so it looks like it comes from the front, and then join this side on there and this side over there. Then there you go, you've got a building that looks as if you're looking from the top down. And yeah, this is basically how you use a 3-point perspective with vanishing point on the bottom side. Now let's move on onto the vanishing point on the top side. So let's take another straight line that comes from this vanishing point. Okay, that's too bad. That's too close to this vanishing point. So let's do this guy. Right. Now once that's done, we attach this onto that line, this on there, this on there. Right, I'm just going to imagine it, and then I'm going to draw these lines like that, and then I'll be using this vanishing point to cut off these lines again, something like this. So we've got a cube like that, and join this point right there, this point right there, intersect somewhere right there, and there you have it. A cube you're looking from the bottom. So this looks like another thing flying. So if there's a man at the bottom looking up like a Superman, he'd be carrying this weight on his head. Right, something like this. So a person carrying a weight, something like that. Now this, in case of a building, let's put the vanishing point right there. Now let's shift it. So we've got a straight line right there, and converges there, converges there, converges there, converges there. This line cuts it off right there. This line cuts it off right there, and now it looks like a building. Right, that you're looking from the bottom. So there's the windows, let's imagine, and yeah, there's a big freaking door. Now there'd be a man like staring at it from the bottom. And that's a big building, I'd say, right? Because it really is. And let's say he's pointing. Look at that, look at that vanishing point up there or down there for the 3-point perspective. Now if I were to put some theory of like composition on this thing, then there'd be a simple, let's say, a piece of paper, right? And then we divide the paper into like a tic-tac-toe box shape. Now this gives us 4 intersections. Now these are the points of the thirds. The rule of thirds applies right there. So I'm just going to teach you guys a simple composition. Now imagine this be the horizon line, and there's be the 2 points on this side, right? So I'd recommend you guys put like a big building on either of these 4 points, right? And then it'll look really cool. Just trust me, you'd have to trust me with this one. So like a big building right there, and a man maybe right there, or a giant coming to this. Oops, wrong perspective. If I were to do this, there'd be something like that, and let's say there's 1 foot right there, 1 foot right there. Right, something like that. So just like that, you can make a person in perspective. So this one is a really rough sketch just for teaching you guys how perspective works, and for now I'd recommend you guys do well with this 2-point perspective thing, because this one's the most important one for the beginning stages, and after that you can move on to the 3. Now in the next episode I'll be using these things to show you guys how to make a basic human anatomy, more of a human structure. See you in the next one. Thank you, bye bye.